Our next step is we need to pivot out our chain case. So we're going to first kind of cut off a little bit more of the stuff in packaging. We're going to pivot out our chain case. We're going to work through to our drive shaft and get that all hooked up and our drive shaft holder put on as well. So we're going to work through that process next. The first thing I'm going to do is clean up some of the stuff still in shipping. So we're down to our chain case. So here's our gearbox. This is a chain case on this side of it. We need to spin this chain case out. And in order to do that, we've got 2 bolts here on the back side that we need to take out. And we're going to reuse these bolts. So we've got the 2 top bolts out. We now have down here on the inside, we're just going to loosen this bolt because we just need to pivot out this chain case. So as you can see, it's already starting to fall out. It doesn't take much to move it. I'm going to pull up on here, and the 2 bolts I'm going to put back in on top, get them started. Now that I've got those started, we want to make sure that we don't over tighten these with an impact. We don't want to crack out our housing up here, but it's pretty easy to spin them in by finger before we tighten up our slide bolt at the bottom. And then we got to make sure we don't forget to tighten up our bolt we loosened down here. So now we've got this rotated out. You might have to pull this cover off in order to get our PTO shaft on. So while I'm right here, we're going to go ahead and try to snap this cover off also. So we're just going to kind of set that off to the side here. We're going to work our way down to the PTO shaft. And the first thing we got to do is take this whole mess of crap off of here. That Canadian guy really likes his job and decided to really tape it up good. So there's a couple of things on this PTO shaft that we need to pay attention to as we're cutting stuff off. The first thing is we're going to have our bracket attached to here, which is going to end up mounting up here to hold our PTO shaft in storage. The other thing in this bag off to the side is if your head is equipped with the dual lateral tilt sensors, then there's a plug in here that we need to put on the head here at a later date. So keep in mind of this plug, we're going to need to use that if your head's equipped with dual lateral tilt sensors. So let's go ahead and clean off all the stuff off this drive shaft. This bag here is what's got that plug in here that I was talking about, so make sure we don't lose that, and it's got instructions in for that plug as well. We've got our mounting plate with bolts. So our drive shaft that goes on our chain case over here is the same spline that's on the newer flagship series case combines. So we got to make sure we put our drive shaft on correctly. So there's a little picture on this drive shaft that shows a tractor. So pretend that the tractor end is your combine to make sure that we're putting that end towards the combine and the other end towards our chain case. Before we go ahead and do that, we're going to go ahead and mount up our storage bracket for this PTO shaft. So we're going to go ahead and put the PTO shaft storage bracket on. We got 2 bolts up here on the inside that are carriage bolts. There it is. So now that we've got our bracket mounted on, we can go ahead and put our PTO shaft on our chain case. We're going to slide inside our cover, get it started, and we got to pull this slip collar all the way back in order to get it slipped into place. Once we've got it locked into place, then we just need to reinstall our protective shield. We're going to have to cut our wire off, put our PTO shaft on its holder, we've got our chain hook up underneath here. We'll hook the chain up right on this metal plate on the back side. While I'm on the back side of the head, the hoses here, we've got a Velcro strip that we need to secure them with. So I'm going to take this Velcro strip and it needs to go around these hoses. And once I have it started, I'm going to pull the hoses into place on this holder. And once we got on the holder, then we'll just refasten our Velcro strip to hold those hoses in place. So on that PTO shaft, we just talked about that plug that was on there for our header height. These are the instructions that are inside of there. So step 2 and step 3 are the only 2 steps that we really care about. And they're going to talk about this P600 connector. So from the factory, the connector that is on that head will only do header height, no field tracker lateral tilt. That's what we need to put this plug on for, is to get the lateral tilt to work for that dual sensor lateral tilt. So where this plug is located at is on the in between the faceplate here. If you were to go right in front of your electrical hookup and reach straight down, we're going to see a plug in there that's got, looks like the same barcode and same wording on it. So I'm going to reach down in there and I'm going to pull the plug off that's in there right now. So I just took that plug off, and you can look at the part number on it, and I'm going to put the plug that came with our drive shaft, and the part number on that plug matches our instructions to get our lateral tilt to work. And I'm going to put that plug in its place. That's clipped in and secure, and we're now going to take our instructions and the plug that we just took off the head, put those together, and they'll go with this head to the customer. Next step is we're going to work on our top links. We're going to get those hooked up. We've got some shipping brackets we got to take off here, as well as there's a nut on this bolt that we're going to take this nut off, get rid of it, because there's a new lock nut that we're going to put in its place. So we're going to do this on both sides of the head. First thing I'm going to do is going to cut the wires off to get to this nut that we're going to need. So I've got my new lock nut that we're going to end up putting on here. Cut these off, and then we're going to take these shipping brackets off. Get rid of the yellow shipping brackets. And now we can slide these top links forward, put our bolt back in. Then we're going to use the new flanged lock nut that we're going to put on the outside here. And then we've got that done on this side. We're going to go ahead and do the same thing to the other side of the head. So now we're going to do the other side of the head. We're going to get our nut out that we're going to reuse. Put our top links back in. And then we're going to put our new flange nut. So we've got this side tightened, and one thing we want to remember is, in order to make these fit right away, is we still have our blocks underneath the main frame on both sides. That allows that center plate to drop down low enough in order to get these top links hooked up. Now that we have those top links hooked up, we've just finished everything on the back side of this head. So our next step is we're going to bring the combine in now. That way we can pick up on our head, raise it up. We can take our blocks out that we've got on the back side of the head that are in the center of the front side of the head, and then we're going to move those blocks to the outside of our wings and lower back down so we can make these adjustments back up here where we took those shipping spacers out before. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. So we've raised up the head with the combine now. We can go ahead and pull out our blocks on the back side of the head, and then we can hook our combine up to the head as well, doing our PTO shaft, our hydraulics, and our first electrical connection. And we'll talk about our second electrical connection a little bit later. And then we'll pull the block out on the other side of the head also. We've got our blocks under the center of the front of the head that were there from when we tipped down the head. And we can see that our head's got a frown right now. We're going to go ahead and move these blocks to the outside corners of the head, and then we'll lower the head down to make it smile. So we just lowered that head down on the blocks on the outside two corners, and when you look across the front of the head, you can see it's got a smile where the wings come up. That's going to allow us to make some adjustments here on our wing float in the back side of the head. So we're at the back of the head again, and we took these spacers out early right here, but now that we have the head back in a smile, it pushed us all back together. So we can go ahead and now tighten this up on this end of the head. This piece has to slide over to make it easier. We're just going to loosen that up, that way that can get slid back over. And then these nuts, we got to spin back in. Sometimes you can't spin them with your finger. And a lot of times with the socket on there, you can then spin it by hand. And then we've got our lock nut on the outside of there to lock the two together. We're going to tighten that one down separately. And then we're going to go ahead and do this on the other side of the head also.